So your cost per lead may go up, but your cost per qualified lead will actually go down. So what do you care about? If you care about cost of quality of leads, and that's what you're being measured on, if the board of your company is measuring cost per lead, and that's how they measure you, then that company is all about growth at all costs. They don't care about unit economics. I'm simplifying it a little bit, right? But basically, and if you talk to the CFO of a company and they say, yes, I want volume, but I'm not willing to increase volume and decrease quality, then you know that you're in the right game. In this case, what if I maintain volume and increase quality, or decrease volume but increase quality or volume of quality users? This is the kind of questions you should be asking first yourself as a marketer, and then your management team about what the priorities are.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where data isn't just numbers on a dashboard. It is the treasure map that turns bold ideas into unstoppable growth. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. When was the last time your marketing strategy looked forward instead of just staring at past results? In a world where yesterday's data feels ancient by, lunchtime, relying solely on historical metrics is a fast track to falling behind. The real edge, learning how to predict customer behavior and adjusting your strategies before problems or opportunities appear. In this episode, we dive into the future of marketing with a deep look at predictive analytics and signal optimization. Big words, but you'll hear how top startups are using AI to optimize ad spend, boost lifetime value, and sharpen their marketing game with smarter, faster feedback loops. It's not about just spraying ads everywhere, it's about targeting better, converting stronger, and scaling smarter. But tech alone, that's not going to save you. We also explore why company culture is still king, even in an AI driven world. Eren breaks down how fostering adaptability, encouraging experimentation, and balancing growth with lead quality is critical to building a business that doesn't just chase trends, but leads them. If you're ready to future proof your marketing, make smarter bets with your data, and create a culture that thrives in constant change, this episode is packed with insights to help you stay ahead. Let's dive in. Our expert guest last Thursday was Adam Coughlin, co founder and CMO of York IE. He showed us how startups can sharpen their messaging, build powerful brands, and align every team member to tell a cohesive and compelling company story. And before that, we had a dynamic duo in a double episode with Harry Masters and Udav Mehra from Inflection Group, where they revealed how tech startups can build elite go to market leadership teams that actually drive revenue and scale without costly hiring missteps. If you missed either of those episodes, go back and check them out. Absolute gold. My guest today is Eren Friendinger, co-founder and CTO of Volantis, a predictive growth platform leveraging AI to forecast user value for online businesses. Check this out. When someone comes to your website, you can actually predict if they're going to buy, how much that lead is actually worth just when they show up. Amazing stuff. Eren is a passionate innovator with deep expertise in machine learning, statistical inference, and cloud computing. Eren has helped scale startups, lead massive engineering teams, and even sell a company in just a little over a year. His mission today: transform data into smarter, faster growth strategies and help founders and marketers stay ahead in an AI driven world. Welcome, Eren Friendinger. Hey, Eren, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thank you, Jeff. Happy to be here.
You've led big engineering teams and then sold your first startup within a year. What inspired you to go from deep tech to building products that directly drive growth and marketing results?
It's a long answer, but the short version of it is that I started out just as an engineer playing around with deep learning, which was very new back at the time. It was 2012. And over time, I got frustrated when customers couldn't actually realize the value in the product and understood that we have to take the product to them and the product needs to be very self-explanatory because honestly what drives me is creating impact and seeing our customers smile basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's really about using those products, like you said, to help your customers grow. And what gap did you see in the market that led to founding Voyantis?
So I would say the gap is that the job of the marketing team is to drive performance and in order to do their job increasingly over the last couple of decades, the jobs become more and more technical and more about activating their own data, right? So basically taking the
Mm.
data, creating automations on top of it in order to create revenue loops and growth loops. The problem was that in order to do that, they don't always have the resources in their own organization. They have to go to the product or the BI teams and so on. So they can identify with analytics an opportunity, but then to activate it, they need more resources. So that's basically what we're trying to solve for.
Oh, that's really good. And I think it's true. A lot of us have mountains of data that we're not really using. And even things, metrics or dashboards or things like that, we're looking to see what has happened. But what is the shortfall in what we're doing with traditional metrics and predictive metrics?
So I think it's a common misconception to think about what has happened as and predictive as being different. They're not different. Predictive is predicting given what has happened. I think the main difference is that when we use analytics, we're looking at very narrow windows of what the data is telling us. And we can look in different windows, but there are too many windows for a human to look at them and then act. You need AI to sift to the different projections and windows and find the golden windows that are actually the eureka moment of this is what needs to happen, and the ability to go into more and more granular micro segmentation and not just say, oh, okay, I understand. People that came in through iOS may have a higher conversion rate than those that came in from, I don't know, Ubuntu or something. That's nice, but there are many more dimensions to look at.
That makes a lot of sense. And so it's really tying that to outcomes. And so it's not just looking at what happened, but tying it to outcomes and sifting through all of that data to focus in on the things that are important and what's really predicting that outcome. Am I getting that right?
For sure. So at any given point in time for any organization or sub-organization like a marketing department, you have KPIs that you have to hit, right? You have goals. And what you're trying
Right.
to do, whether it's a specific spend level or a specific efficiency or going after a specific type of customers and so on. And in order to do that, you often find yourself in a position where you need to find like proxy metrics that you can tactically optimize for to try and get and push the North Star metric. And it's nice. An example would be I'm here to drive long term ROAS, return on ad spend. So I'm going to focus on immediate cost of acquisition. Of course, improving the cost of acquisition generally improves ROAS, but it's kind of like
Yes.
you kind of might be, there's a saying, don't spill the baby with the water. You might be spilling the baby with the water, right? Because totally
Mm.
focusing on scale and growth at all costs, you might find yourself increasing your scale but driving lower quality users. So that's always like a trade-off, and it's a very natural trade-off for anybody to do, not just marketers. You're focusing on something that is immediately measurable and somewhat controllable for you. But with the right kind of predictive analytics, you can focus on something that is immediately measurable, but is much more aligned to what you are being measured on in the organization. So you can win your goals, you can get your bonus, you can get your promotion because you've done your job amazingly well, right?
That was really smart because you're right. We do tend to measure the things that are easiest or the things that are obvious. And some of those are surface level. Some of them we try and do the thing that we have control over in order to change something else that's related, but not necessarily directly impacted.
Yes. That's correct. And I think everybody is doing it to some extent. So if you think about, I don't know, think about a SaaS product that is, I don't know, whiteboard collaboration tool for teams. Okay.
Okay.
What would you like? The immediate measurable thing would be to measure cost per sign up. Because if you wanted to measure cost per paying customer or even return on ad spend, you'll have to wait months and months because it takes time
Right.
in a freemium product to actually get to that revenue point. So you can optimize for cost per sign up or ask the network to run a TCPA campaign on sign up. But smarter teams, most teams today do it like this, would say, okay, what can I see in the data that is immediately available and indicates higher quality? So it could be the device that you're connecting from. So they could say, with a SaaS product, if you connect from mobile, when in your onboarding flow, it's a much lower conversion rate. So let's not send those, only send signups from desktop. Or you could say, let's only send signups from emails that are not from the Gmail domain or from the Hotmail domain, but look like a corporate domain, and so on. So everybody is doing something. The intuition makes sense, but you should take it
Right.
all the way through. It's not just about what device you're from or what is your Gmail. Oh, sorry, what is your email suffix or the domain or how many team members did you invite within the first day. It's all of those together, and without AI, you really cannot just encompass all of it and distill it into how good of a user is this for my business, basically.
That makes so much sense because we do try and segment audiences and we focus on specific characteristics.
Yeah.
And there may be a correlation. There may not be. It may just be anecdotal. We think that one is higher value than another. But I think it's fascinating to look at that not only with your predictive analytics, but also across factors. And so taking all of that data and really letting the model tell you the things that are most valuable, the things that are most predictive, and you're really forecasting the value of a lead. You can do that really early and also even in your targeting. So you can specifically target those based on the things that from the data
Exactly.
are going to be the highest value leads.
Yes, that's exactly correct. And by calling it lead, you've hit a nerve there, I think, because I used to have a statistics professor in the university that would ask the team, like the class, they would write something on a very complex question. And at the end of it, he would say, can we estimate or predict what the result will be? And there would be silence in the room. And then he said, the answer is always yes. You can always estimate. You can always predict. The question is, how good will you be at it, right? So think about sales teams. Sales teams have been doing this for a while in a different way. What is a qualified lead? What does it mean to be sales qualified or product qualified?
Right.
It's just a bunch of parameters, models, AI, not AI, it doesn't matter. It's logic based on your historical data that tells you I've got those signals that tell me this is not just a lead, a qualified lead. I often find some of our customers have lead, qualified lead, highly qualified lead, very highly qualified lead. It's a low probability, mid probability, high probability. And
Right.
this should be basically applied to all of the data that you have and not just limited to sales teams. Marketing teams should be using it. And marketing teams are at a much better position. They have much more volume. So they can build much
Yes.
better models. So they can predict,
That makes
like my professor said, but they can probably predict pretty well.
Yes. Yes. And that makes a lot of sense to even move that further up into marketing for really getting the things in because then that affects the entire downstream. You get higher qualified leads, and just like you said, the super high qualified leads that with a high probability, then amazingly a lot more of those close.
Exactly.
And so that's what you want. So it's really optimizing the acquisition. Can you also use it on the back end for retention or looking for signals that
Yes.
a customer might leave or churn?
Yeah, there are so many uses for that kind of modeling. It could be used still under acquisition for basically prioritizing and like where to put my next dollar questions. So not just optimizing the
Right.
network within an existing campaign, which is what Volantis' main product, signal optimization, does, but actually more on the predictive analytics side, it's also very valuable. Just it works very well with media mix modeling together. Because when you do media mix modeling and try to understand where to attribute, it's not just attribute what. You want to attribute the long-term value of sign up. And outside of acquisition, If we're talking about retention or upsell or even activation, this is very valuable because you could use a predictive engine looking at the same data points and understanding the same quality of users. What is an LTV prediction? It is the understanding of the value a user sees in a product. Because if they see value, they will pay. They will pay to get to get service, to get whatever value they're. If they don't, they won't, unless they forget the subscription. And at some point, they'll cancel the subscription. So once you understand that, and you understand, is a product valuable to a user? What features in the product are valuable to a user? Then you can build messaging, whether it's about discounts and coupons or whatever, or it's just about helping them discover and educate themselves about the product to further basically lay out the value that you can bring to them so they will use it. Yes, for sure. If you're using a discount, if you're a marketplace, a consumer product, and you're using coupons or credits to get your CRM users, so basically the users that signed up but haven't purchased yet, you're trying to get them to make their first purchase. And maybe you're saying, oh, here's a $5 coupon for your next purchase in the next 2 days or whatever. Then you probably have a limited budget of those coupons. You cannot just give it to everybody. So who do you give it to? Who do you give it to? You could say, oh, let's just give it to the users that made the most purchases up until now. But these users did not make any purchase yet. Let's just give it to the users that came from iOS. Let's just users that came from a specific geo. No, let's give it to the users maybe that, I don't know, search in the high value restaurants, I know, sushi restaurants, for example. Just the model will tell you what to do, basically. So it's very valuable for retention, for activation, for upsell, and as well. Yes.
Yeah. I think you're right. We do that a lot today in looking at promotions or looking at how do we get them to take action, and we treat everybody the same. Yeah, and they're at different stages. They've come from different sources. They're different. They may not be ready to buy for 90 days, 2 years, who knows? But we treat them all the same. And I like that, being able to really pick and target the right offer for the right person, or the highest probability for conversion at the right time.
And by the way, when you think about it, anybody that does life cycle marketing and even some of the product experience optimization is like working with tools that are similar to what paid acquisition marketers have been working with 25 years ago. In the sense that 25 years ago, paid Google search marketer would bid on specific keywords and try new keywords and see what happens and maybe manually change the bid and so on. Today, we throw a bunch of keywords on the AI, Google's AI, right? We throw a bunch of keywords, we give them a budget, we give them a business goal, conversion value, volume, ROAS, TCPA, whatever we want. We set the policy. We come in with new initiatives, maybe try new geos, maybe try consolidating, maybe try a new search concept and you play around with the keywords Google. And when you think about lifecycle marketers, they have to come up with everything. They have to come up with the hypothesis. They have to test them, and they have to test them on what kind of segmentation. They have to choose the segmentation. There's no AI, there's no learning algorithm, learning period, and then there's no contest of valuable treatments and whoever wins goes up. They have to manage all of that themselves. It's very manual. What about statistical significance? Where's the automation here? It's 20 years ago, and it's time that will change. It's about time.
And you introduced the concept of signal optimization. Is that kind of what you're talking about here?
Yes.
To improve performance marketing?
Yes. So Volantis' main product for acquisition is signal optimization, which is AI talking to AI. Basically, we connect to the data lake, understand for each user that comes in what the predictive LTV is going to be, and then we manage the conversation with Google's AI or Meta's AI or TikTok's AI as to how to perform the bidding for the next customers to maximize ROAS. But within it, and that's amazing because people don't realize how powerful those engines are when you feed them with the right signals. And that is something that is not there for lifecycle marketers. They don't have Google's AI or Meta's AI as partners. So Volantis comes in and does both on the lifecycle part. And in the acquisition part, It's just enough to provide the right feedback to the network, but it really has to be very smart feedback. And that can result in tens of percentages of improvement in ROAS at scale. And we've seen it across many industries: fintech, SaaS, consumer, real estate, almost everything.
And the marketers are using that in, I guess, the engagement signals, and they give better feedback to the ad networks, and it creates this loop
That's exactly.
of more information coming back in, and then they're feeding back, and so you have this loop, so it keeps getting better and better.
That's exactly it. Basically, Google and Face and Meta and TikTok and all of those, they are they have the most information in the world, the best data in the world. The only thing they need to
Yes.
know is how good is this user to your product. You feed them that feedback, they can really constantly improve. And it's not only about improving, it's also about staying on point because things change. Your product goes through changes, your customers go through changes, the market goes through changes, and the network needs to be able to track those changes in relationship between users and products over time to maintain quality. And that quality feedback creates quick corrections by the networks and basically very good
Yeah.
SLA on the traffic quality that you're getting.
Oh, that's really good. And I think a lot of us don't really think about giving feedback back to the network, the ad networks, saying this is a good lead, this is not a good lead. Send me a whole lot more of these, because I don't know, maybe the perception is if I tell them I want a whole lot more of those, then my cost is going to go up.
Yeah,
And that may be true, but still the quality of leads you get would be so much better.
exactly.
I would think it would way outweigh any additional incremental cost.
That's correct. We often get a question about, okay, I'll switch to LTV prediction signal. Isn't my cost going to go up? The answer is that yes and no. Your cost for the beginning of the funnel will go up for the lead or whatever you want to call them. Your cost for down the funnel will go down. So your cost per lead may
Right.
go up, but your cost per qualified lead will actually go down. So what do you care? So what do you care about? If you care about cost of quality of leads, and that's what you're being measured on, if the board of your company is measuring cost per lead, and that's how they measure you, then that company is all about growth at all costs. They don't care about unit economics. I'm simplifying it a little bit, right? But basically,
Sure.
and if you talk to the CFO of a company and they say, yes, I want volume, but I'm not willing to increase volume and decrease quality, then you know that you're in the right game. In this case, what if I maintain volume and increase quality, or decrease volume but increase quality or volume of quality users? This is the kind of questions you should be asking first yourself as a marketer, and then your management team about what the priorities are. So your cost per lead may go up, but your cost per qualified lead will actually go down. So what do you care? So what do you care about? If you care about cost of quality of leads, and that's what you're being measured on, if the board of your company is measuring cost per lead, and that's how they measure you, then that company is all about growth at all costs. They don't care about unit economics. I'm simplifying it a little bit, right? But basically, and if you talk to the CFO of a company and they say, yes, I want volume, but I'm not willing to increase volume and decrease quality, then you know that you're in the right game. In this case, what if I maintain volume and increase quality, or decrease volume but increase quality or volume of quality users? Stock exchanges are actually looking at profitability.
Ready to future proof your company and scale to new heights? Dive into the ultimate resource designed just for SaaS founders and C suite executives. Champion Leadership Group gives you an unfair advantage in scaling up revenue and outwitting competitors. Imagine solving your biggest scaling headaches and hitting 5, 10, 20 million ARR and beyond with ease. We take away the guesswork and the grunt work and replace it with framework by supporting you with our on demand fractional C suite team, a powerful operating system built into software, and a thriving community of fellow scaling SaaS founders. That's how we make it happen. If you're stuck at your current revenue level, this is your ticket out. Feel like your company is the world's best kept secret? We amplify your success. And hey, if you're already crushing it but too busy to breathe, we got your back. We'll free up 20% of your time in the first month. Now is the time to upgrade from traction to scale. If you're ready to work smarter and not just grind harder, schedule a 10-minute growth brainstorm. Completely free, not a sales call. You can't buy anything on there. And we will pinpoint the number one thing blocking revenue. Visit championleadership.com. That's where leaders evolve and companies transform. That makes so much sense because I think the easy thing to measure then is cost per lead. And that's such surface level, but that's the initial barometer for a lot of companies.
Yes.
But then they look at, they want to make client acquisition costs lower. And so they try and make the cost per lead lower, but that's not necessarily interrelated.
Yeah.
So cost per lead could actually go up, but your acquisition cost could go down because you're getting the more qualified, you're closing a higher percentage.
Yeah, I think that there are times in a business's life where it actually makes sense, especially earlier on, when you're not just paying for quality users, you're paying for data. You're buying more
Sure.
users.
You don't even know
You
what a
want
good
to
user looks
learn
like.
what works well, and you need volume in order
Yeah.
to train your own understanding. I had a conversation with a customer a few weeks ago. I told them, listen, looking at your data, you can do this and this will increase your revenue. Actually, a change in the product. You can do this. It will increase your revenue. It will increase your efficiency. It will maintain your scale of spend, but it will decrease your scale of leads. And then he said, amazing. And then, oh no, we need those volume of leads because we're still learning about what kind of funnels we want to do in the product. So they actually need volume to optimize their own product. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
That's a phase in your life. But usually, the bigger the company, especially today, you want profitability. Like when we started out, 2020, more than half the conversation were about same kind. Yes, we want LTV, but we cannot have any, not even a dent in the volume of signups. And
Right.
today, it's reverse. Like everybody's looking for, or most people are looking for profitability.
Yeah. Fundamental difference. But that makes a lot of sense early on in the life stage of just figuring out what a good customer looks like. And then once you have that, kind of shifting over and taking that data and using it
Exactly.
to be able to get those higher quality
Yeah.
leads.
It also, you should also take into account that doing that kind of optimization costs money and experimentation. So unless you've got a large user base and basically like a cycle of revenue, you don't want to sacrifice 50% of your users for an experiment, right? So you need that volume
Right.
even to experiment with higher value potential methods. So this is why we often don't go for the low market and aim more to like large companies and enterprise. It's about a phase
So,
in the life. That's all.
so it works more for the higher volume. So if it's enterprise or account-based marketing, this is not necessarily the right solution for that. But if it's product-led growth or more higher volume,
It's
lower ticket, more users.
I think you should do this if you are at a spend of, I would say, north of $4 million a year on marketing spend. And
Okay.
if you've got, I don't know, at least several thousand, or a couple of thousand new leads a month. Otherwise, you won't have enough volume to observe the impact of what you're doing.
Makes
It does
sense.
not rule out enterprise at all. It rules out heavy
Sure.
enterprise B2B with very large average order value. But we've got customers like Deal, for example.
Sure.
That goes to high value customer with high LTV, and it's still very valuable.
That makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of companies struggle with attribution, just figuring out what it is that a good customer looks like, and then where did they come from.
Oh, yes.
So whether they track last click, what was the last source, what was the first source,
Yes.
could be MQL based attribution. What's wrong with that model, and how can predictive signals offer better long-term ROI?
I would say attribution and LTV modeling are distant cousins, and they work very well together, but they're separate problems. It's a super tough question, attribution. There are companies out there, a lot of them, and media mix modeling and so on. And the
Right.
big problem with that is that there is no truth. There's only subjective truth. Right? How do you prove that your attribution model is correct? There are ways to
Right.
prove that some aspect of your attribution model is correct, and those ways cost money and experimentation. It's very important to set up an attribution model you feel you can trust. And predictive modeling for lifetime value plays in tandem with this because Predicting the value of a user is not dependent on knowing where they came from. Once the user is in your system, their behavior tells you the predictive lifetime value of that user. Yes, if you've got reliable attribution data, that can augment the prediction accuracy, for sure. Okay, so obviously, traffic coming on from Google search is going to have a higher average conversion rate from traffic coming on from Meta or any social platform, right? Because they come with intent. So knowing that is valuable. However, the more a user interacts with the product, the less the starting conditions affect the prediction. So I'll give you an example. We've got Miro, which is a customer that is a whiteboard collaboration PLG SaaS tool. And we build a model that predicts users' LTV continuously from the moment they stepped into the product. So at the moment they created their account, and then an hour later, and 2 hours later, and so on. When you look at what the model cares about in the first few hours, the operating system is very important. The geolocation is very important. The size of the company that you work at is very important. When you look 2 days later, the signals that are most up there are how many boards did you create, how many team members did you invite, did you log in, how many sessions did you make. So it really very quickly, within a couple of days, where you came from, geo and attribution and whatever you want, starts fading out in importance. So you don't have to have attribution, but it's always good to have reliable attribution data. But once you have attribution and you have LTV, they marry on off very well, because instead of trying to optimize short-term metrics with your attribution data, you can optimize your actual healthy unit economics with the attribution data.
That makes sense. What have been some of the biggest challenges in building Volantis?
It's a good question. I think the beginning was convincing the market that growth at all costs is going to explode in the faces of everybody, and that companies should prepare themselves for the day of unit economics. We're past that point, happily for Volantis. But when you think about 2020 and 2021, COVID, everybody was just, it was like the gold rush. So the beginning was a little tough in the sense that we had to believe that this is where the world is going. And late 2022, it started really going, basically exploding as a business. So that, I would say, was one challenge. Another challenge was that we decided to work with, as I told you, with larger companies because of all of the reasons that make sense for this product. And as a small company working with large companies, that kind of puts you in the beginning in a place where you don't have a lot of data points on what a qualified customer is and what isn't. So you would start working with some customers and then say, those customers I can create a lot of value for. Why am I not just bringing those kind of customers in? So again, after we got some data, after a couple of years, it became much easier to really focus on the market that we're going to drive the most value for.
That makes sense. What experiences did you bring from your first company? Not a lot of people have built and sold a company in a year.
Yeah,
That's
actually
super
18
fast.
months, but yeah, it's close enough.
That's super fast.
Yes.
What experience did you bring from that you brought to Volantis, and those lessons still paying off here?
A year and a half is not a lot of time, but we managed to have ups and downs within that year and a half. And my main takeaway was that people are everything. It's like we have tough times, we had easier times, mostly tough times because you're a startup. And with the right culture and the right people around you, it can be amazing, and it should be amazing. And when we started Volantis a few years ago, Ido, our CEO, my co-founder, and myself, we were really focused on understanding what culture we want to bring in, how are we going to build that, what is the DNA, and how are we going to manage basically the filtering or interviewing or recruiting process in a way that guarantees that we create the right culture and maintain it. So that was takeaway number one. People are everything. Like business, it can go left, it can go right. You'll identify opportunities, you'll do it. The other thing that I brought with me is never give up. It's like there are days where everything seems lost or bad, and then you say, okay, fine, let's go to sleep and wake up in the morning. But tomorrow is a new day, And if you stay in the game and you're smart and you're basically working hard, you'll find the opportunity, and then you just be ready to double down on the opportunity. The third thing, which is more, I would say, specific to our business, is what I just told you. The first company was a predictive analytics company, proper predictive analytics, no automation, just
Okay.
just a dashboard, and not just, but we didn't go and create any automation for the customer, just insights. And I identified what I told you in the beginning, that customers would be thrilled with the insights it created and then have a lot of thoughts on how they can use this to improve the business. And then they got stuck on actually moving those kind of efforts within their own organization. And when we started Volantis, we said, this time we're going to take it all the way through. Like, we will help, we will be the ultimate partner to the marketer, where if you work with us, once we're connected to us, we are all you need to do your job. You won't be dependent on your internal teams too much. There's always some dependency, and there has to be some collaboration. But for most of your daily loops, we will help you just activate whatever automations you need to activate in order to be a hero and hit your KPIs.
That's really good. What was the biggest challenge in either company?
Wow. I think in the first company, the challenge was figuring out the right commercial model to monetize. We were early on, we were three technological founders that were just starting our journey as entrepreneurs. In Volantis, the biggest challenge. There are so many challenges in a startup. It's hard to choose.
Yes.
But if I look at the last year, scaling up is hard. It's very hard because your organization metamorphoses so quickly, it mutates. Because what you did when you had 10 customers doesn't make sense when you have 40 customers. And it doesn't make sense if you want to be ready for 400 customers. So that's always second guessing the status quo in what you're doing and reinventing how you're doing things. Just trial and error. Don't shy away from time for experimenting. That's it.
That's a great lesson. How did you prioritize, or how did you think about capital and in building the companies? Is it something, have you raised? Is it bootstrapped? Or how did you think about that process?
We raised money. We just announced around $40 million about 2 months ago, a B round. Before that, we raised another 19 million in 2021 or 22, 21. And we started out with wanting to build a bootstrap business, Ido and myself. Having been already, Ido, my co-founder, has also built and sold a company previously in the video streaming space called TVinci. It was acquired by Kaltura. And so we wanted to build like a business if we could. But what we started doing in the beginning and what we ended up doing with Volantis was that we identified a very big opportunity in the market. And we are the leading product in the space of PLTV optimization. And we want to keep that lead and we want to take the market, and you need capital for that. Otherwise, somebody else will raise capital and just swoop in.
Sure.
So it's like the perfect storm of timing and technology and generative AI and high interest rates, and everybody's thinking about profitability, that we have to accelerate. So this is why we raised the total of 60 million.
Sure. And, AI is changing so fast. Even since you started the company, so many things have changed. And yeah, that's exactly right. How do you prioritize feature development and your product roadmap decisions when things are changing fast, and then balancing the needs of your existing customers with demands of attracting new ones?
So I think on the balancing demands of existing customers and attracting new ones, it was harder in the beginning, where you're a small company and every customer you're not really that opinionated about your product yet, still forming your thoughts.
Sure.
We are not at that point. We are very focused on what we want to build and how we want to build it. So we will of course do some customization for some customers, especially if they're very large customers, but it only within the existing product line. So we wouldn't do something totally like professional service for this. So that's regardless of generative AI and LLMs. But yes, I think especially like it's been a couple of years, everybody say, okay, ChatGPT, LLMs, but in the last 3 or 4 months, something really changed, right? It's like accelerated, turbo acceleration.
Yes.
And we've seen within our own organization, like a total transformation, like from people that said, okay, yeah, ChatGPT is nice, I play around with it. Everybody is using generative AI, not just ChatGPT, many tools. Uh,
Right.
uh, and the whole roles and responsibility of most roles is mutating. So product is now a little bit of an engineer and a little bit of a designer. And engineers are now a little bit of product and a little bit of QA. And marketers are also a little bit of designers and a little bit of pre-sales. So
Right.
it's like basically, end of the day, we should be able to do much more with much less. And I think any company that is not going to really improve their efficiency is going to be in big trouble. But it's amazing to see. You have to, I think, I don't have the answer yet because it's really, really, really new. But our position is that we should be dedicating both manpower, capital, and just generally give the policy of we need to be constantly experimenting with those tools because even if we think we know how to use them, in a month from now, there will be new capabilities. So anything
Right.
between AI captain in each team and then dedicated hackathons to use those new tools very often to discover more capabilities, sharing of knowledge, kind of executives always asking team members, have you used this tool or this tool to improve what you're doing right now on specific tasks that take a lot of time or a lot of effort or are worth a lot of money? Everything is changing and it's mostly about be ready for an ever-changing world. I think that's, even for any employee today, that's going to be the biggest skill set that you need to come in with. Just
Yes.
be very broad, very open, very quick to adopt, and don't stay stuck on what worked a quarter ago. That's quarter ago, five
So
years
good.
ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah. And you said people were one of the key things in hiring those people, finding the ones that are going to be adaptable. How have you created a strong company culture within your organization? And how do you attract people and retain within that culture?
Some of it is elusive, but most of it I think is very, you can point a finger or put a finger on it. I think it starts with hiring people that are very focused on always being prepared to whatever task they're going to tackle, owning it and delivering it. So focus on delivery and preparedness, which are two sides of the same coin. If you're not going to be prepared, you're not going to deliver, and the other way around. I think we care very much about people that see other people. In Yiddish, it's called being a mensch. Basically, just be the person. Always treat somebody else the way you would have wanted them to treat you, with respect, with fairness, with inquisitiveness, and with kindness. I think that's basically like a basic trait that you'll find in almost, if not all, of our employees. And our focus, I would say, it's a double meaning on the word, but our core value is to bring value optimization,
Mm.
value maximization. But if you're doing something and you cannot explain what the value of that is to our customer, then what are we doing? Why are we doing it? So you need to be able to attach a value or indicate a value. It doesn't have to be a dollar value, but it has to be observable value. And that's if you're acting kindly, if you're treating your other people fairly, if you're ready and you're owning whatever you do, and you make sure that you're bringing value, that's it. That's all you need in my book and in our culture.
Oh, that's great. Lots of founders are listening. If a founder wants to get smarter about data driven growth today, what is the first step they should take to make better, faster decisions?
First step, make sure that your data is organized and captured well. Because without a fundamental infrastructure, you cannot do anything. And it's always easy to say, I'll organize this infrastructure later after I scale. It's not. It's too late, right? Put in place product analytics, your data lake, insist on BI events in every sprint for every R&D ticket. Make sure you tag all of your cloud resources with the relevant customer or product or feature. So you'll be able to then later on activate the data or use Gen AI to activate the data. It doesn't matter. Without data, there is no data activation. So I would say that's the basic of it. The other thing is find somebody that is inquisitive and smart and give them the job of driving the business growth and throw them at that data. Someone or someone's. That's
Yes.
Yeah, I think it really depends. There's the difference between heavy B2B lead organization and consumer or B2SMB. Right? It's a different thing, but the principle is still the same. In marketing, in sales, if you don't capture your data in Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever you want to do, how will you project your next year's scalability? It's just like
You're correct. Where can people learn more about you and about Volantis online?
so. It's voyantis.ai in the website. VOY. Okay, you can see the name here. VOYNTIS.ai. Reach us on LinkedIn. We've got a bunch of webinars and podcasts on our webpage, and you can reach out to me at eran@voyantis.ai. ERAN, sorry, at voyantis.ai.
Very good. We'll make sure and link all of that in the show notes.
Thank you.
And Eren, it was so great having you on the show today. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Of course. Thank you, Jeff. It was a pleasure.
Thanks again, Eren, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Eren and the amazing things that they're doing over at voyantis.ai. You probably could have guessed the AI, right? As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes, including a link to Volantis AI, are available at saasfuel.com. And of course, check us out on YouTube as well. That's at Champion Leadership. We have full video episodes, trainings, outtakes, shorts, lots of resources over there for you. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with someone who is creating space for others to grow. Somebody like that? Man, I can think of a few. Everyone who shares this week gets exclusive access to a secret menu at Starbucks. The Venture Latte has extra shots of ambition included right in there. So go in and order one today, just for you if you shared the episode. What if you could know exactly what your website visitors want before they even tell you? Next time, we'll continue this topic and sit down with Chris Daly, a digital marketing entrepreneur and neural marketer, to dive into psychology-based testing and how companies are using it to massively boost website profitability. Think about that. Voyantis and what Chris is doing, amazing. And after that, 1 week from today, how do you simplify complex technology into real-world revenue? We'll be here with Lior Weinstein, serial entrepreneur and fractional CTO, CRO, shares how he is helping $20 to $100 million founder-led businesses drive massive digital growth while keeping things focused, fast, and actionable. So I will see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.